Welcome to the Memecoin podcast, where we interview Memecoin millionaires, billionaires, the best investors, traders, advisors, influencers, leaders, developers, people that are in the trenches, people that are deep in the Memecoin game. The goal is simply to extract information from the best of the best to help you on your crypto journey. 99% of my net worth is in meme coins, because where else can you turn 10 grand into life-changing gains? And you never want to miss an episode, because you never know when you're going to hear something that can change your life here in Memeville. The Memecoin podcast is in partnership with G Media. Okay, your number one source for crypto content, analysis, commentary, real-time news and information, so you can stay ahead of the game. Shout out to David Gockstein and the G Media team. Follow them on all platforms, but especially on Twitter. You never want to miss a space. You never want to miss a breakdown of what's going on in the crypto markets Monday through Friday. Real-time information to help you get ahead of the game. All right, in today's episode, we have one of my favorite individuals in this entire space. This guy has made such a massive difference in my life because he's an actual trader. I call him my quant simply because he's a genius. He's a gigabrain. He has an incredible story. He knows charts. He actually knows what he's doing. The proof is actually in the pudding. And I love this guy, my man, Guardian. Yo, Guardian, what is going on, fella?
Hey, Henok. Thanks for having me here. Dude, nothing much. Bitcoin just hit an all-time high the day that we're recording this, and it's been a while. It's been a while since we're back in that upper range, and it feels really good, dude. It feels fantastic.
It feels also good because you were right. You're right. We're recording this Wednesday, May the 21st. It's the afternoon. And you were right. You were one of the few people that I leaned on over the last 4 or 5 months during this downturn to help me make sense of what's going on in the charts. I cannot wait to dig into your brain, to dig into your story, to get into how in the world did you get this far in the crypto game in such a short period of time. Thank you for making the time to be here today, man. It's going to be a great interview.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me again.
Dude, we got to start off with your resume, okay? We got to know right now on the Memecoin podcast, what are some of the most successful trades you have ever executed? What have been some of the biggest gainers that you have ever made in memes?
As far as spot goes, right? Because that's what people are most interested in. They see the leverage trades and they're like, oh, that's cool. But, I'm too new to crypto to learn leverage trading. And that's what people think. And they just want to, download Phantom Wallet, buy some memes, and watch them go parabolic. And as far as that goes, my biggest gains percentage-wise, the biggest one that I fully realized, fully exited the position near the top is probably on this meme coin called Dodo. And it was my first big win in crypto. And I started my crypto journey with $1,000 in a dream last year in Q1, and I got into Dodo with $200, and I fully exited the position just shy of $10,000, which I then flipped into another play on the same day that I fully exited Dodo and 2x'd it. And so it, $200 into 20 grand. And that was probably the most euphoric feeling that I felt in crypto. And, since then I've had a couple 6-figure trades. I've had a couple positions that have reached 7 figures. Although, if you're in meme coins, you know that you can't exactly just fully realize a 7-figure position. That takes a lot of time. But the number one play that stands out is it's got to be Dodo, man. It's got to be that trade, my first big win. And that's what really set me up for my entire crypto journey since then.
Talk to me about, some of the other plays since then, man. What was your number 2, number 3, number 4, number 9, number 13? Give me all the plays that just come to mind and some of the X's you saw.
The craziest position that I've ever had, and this is something that I have not sold any of because I made a public promise not to, because it's on a project that I run. It's called Stonks. I got in Stonks at an extremely low market cap, and I bought up, I want to say 15% of the supply for just shy of $10,000 altogether. I did that because I wanted to take over the project and run it and see how high I could send it. And we got it to 42 million market cap, at which point my bag was worth well over $5 million. And, I could have tried to sell as much of that as I could, but that would have been extremely disingenuous. And I firmly believe that dishonest money in crypto, it does not last, and it disappears faster than you can make it. So I didn't sell that one because I made a promise not to. publicly, but that was probably the craziest feeling. Another position that I had, this was my second win in crypto, after Dodo, and that play took like 2.5, 3 months to play out. After that, I went on to another play that took a similar amount of time, and that was Bird Dog. I got in with $7,500. It was a public position. I announced it when I bought, and I charted it daily after I bought for several months. And at its peak, that was worth just over $130,000, if I'm remembering correctly.
Wow. Yeah, how many X's is that?
A lot. 15, I want to say, somewhere around there.
Dude, you never stopped winning either. I think this is all summer of 2024, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All three of those wins were before July of 2024. Yeah, that was when the bulk of my main euphoric spot trades have played out, because I like to stick to Ethereum. I don't like to hyper gamble on Solana tokens. I've had some pretty big wins since then, but I think Ethereum on chain, it really hit its peak in May and June of 24. And that's when everything was going absolutely insane. And we saw a little bit of that come back in November and December of 24, and a little bit of it bled over into January. But I really think that Q1, Q2 era of 24 was really the peak on Ethereum meme coins. But I personally do think that we'll have a time much better than that later in this cycle, where gains will come back and it'll be easy mode once again. And I'm very excited for that time.
I know we had a massive drawdown. Memes hit their bottoms around March, April. Did you buy anything? Have you seen some gains since then?
I have. So in December, I started selling things a bit early, like three weeks from the top, we'll say. And this was before Trump launched his meme coin and everything skyrocketed and then nuked. I started selling aggressively in that month, and I had a bunch of stable coins left to the side, and I bought a ton of mid caps, especially on Ethereum in that downside. Projects like Wolf on Ethereum, that's the OX67 contract address one. There are a couple wolves, because it took a while for there to be an established winning wolf. And I bought a bunch of Bobo and a bunch of Apu and Brett, SPX 6900, Mog, and Pepe. I think that those were the biggest things that I bought on that dip. And I'm up 3 to 7x depending on the project. It changes up by the day, obviously, because meme coin volatility is something else. But that's the gist of it. That's where I'm sitting at the moment.
What about your leverage trading? What have been some of the most successful leverage trades that you have made since you've been here?
My most memorable leverage trade was also my first leverage trade with any size. And this was about a month after I started leverage trading. I believe this started in October, when Jules, our good friend Jules, he got me hooked into leverage trading, and I realized it's just like normal trading, except I can use more money than I had set aside for it. And obviously there's drastically increased risk. I wouldn't recommend trying out leverage trading unless you're an experienced trader. But I started with Ponky, and I did that on a 3x leverage long, and I bought and I bought and I bought for months until I had a 6-figure position in it before leverage, which I did fully exit in December, if I remember correctly. And I kind of fumbled it a little bit. I exited the day before it got Binance perps. And so that was a bit of a rough day, but then I got back in, and it was a whole thing. And I made mid to low 6 figures on that one. It was a wild ride.
Unbelievable. You know what's so cool about your story? That this is the part that I love the absolute most. And most of the people don't know this, so I'm going to say it publicly. You have not been here for years. Do you want to disclose how long and like what month and year you started, your whole crypto journey?
Yeah. So I started in February, very late February or very early March of 2024. I forget exactly what day, but it was within a week or two of Bitcoin hitting its local top at 74K. And that's when I got in, and I just had $1,000 in a dream. I was a broke college student. I just wanted a way to make some extra money. And I did not know the crazy journey that getting into crypto at that point would kick off.
You got in near the top before it started going down. So you entered into a downward spiraling market, at least in the short run, right?
Yep, that is correct. The first 7 or 8 months of my crypto journey was in a Bitcoin downtrend.
The narrative is so critical to understand. You came in late. You came into a downturn. You only had $1,000. You had a dream, no experience trading anything. Wall Street, degrees, finance, economics, anything, my guy?
That is correct. I had not traded anything prior to this.
No investing, no training, no business acumen, really. You're super crazy young. You came in with a dream and an insane work ethic, and you've made what I call life-changing gains. And if I had to guess, this is what you do now for a living. I imagine I don't know how much of your personal life you want to disclose, but you've made life-changing gains, that's for sure.
100%. I mean, it is something where I have not realized as much as I would like to yet and cash out to my bank account yet. But that's because the bull run's still going. But in the meantime, the amount that I have really has been life-changing. It's been enough where I have been able to work for myself for over a year now. I have not worked for anybody else, and I've been paying myself out of my portfolio more than I would have made at my old job, which is significant. I've been paying for my school in its entirety. I've been able to get engaged, and I've got a wedding in August that I am fully paying for through crypto, and it has drastically changed my life, that's for sure.
Man, what an incredible and inspiring story for so many. How did you get into crypto, meme coins? If you found your way into leverage, how did you get into this game, man?
Well, that's actually a bit of a funny story, and it was an interesting workaround. I myself, when I started college in January, well, not started, I had already been in college for multiple years at this point. But when I had started my January semester, I guess, in 2024 at college, I was looking for a way to make some extra money. And I couldn't really get a job anywhere because my college was in a city with nothing around. There were not any jobs available on campus. There was nothing. No job opportunities within 40 minutes of my dorm. But I wanted a way to make some extra money to help my girlfriend at the time, who is now my fiance. I wanted to help her pay for her own college and get a car. And that was the goal. So I actually got into drop shipping, and I met a lot of really interesting and a lot of really fun people there, people who I'm still friends with today. And we drop shipped for a while, and then some things got shaken up with the platform that we worked on. And basically, we couldn't do that anymore, or at least it was not very cost effective or time effective. And so we just all kind of transitioned to crypto, and like one by one we just started switching to crypto. All my friends switched to crypto before me, actually, and they were all buying Bobo as their first meme coin, which was my first meme coin as well, but they were buying into it at like 2 to 4 mil market cap, and so they got in crazy early. I got in less than a month after them, but it was at 30 million market cap on Bobo. But I saw them get a 15x in a matter of like 2 weeks. And I was like, man, if I had done that instead of sitting on my money in my bank account, and at that point I had $1,000 that I had made from drop shipping, if I had just put that in Bobo and sold at 30 million market cap, and it ended up going to 220 mil market cap. So 30 mil is still pretty low. If I had just done that, then I would have 15 grand. I would have been able to help pay for my girlfriend's college and car. And that was my goal. And that's why I got into crypto. I saw that and I FOMO'd into Bobo, basically.
Yeah, it's funny. It's always interesting to hear about the first meme that brings people in. I love Bobo. And boy, what a crazy run up Q1, Q2, really of 2024 for Bobo. But the part that's so fascinating for me about your story is the speed at which you went from being a novice to someone that's printing life-changing money. Me personally, it took me years. I mean, it's been 4 years just to get here. I consider you way further along than where I'm at. And you've been here for just barely over a year now. How did you learn about trading, memes, investing? Can you go through your protocol, the processes that you went through, especially in those early days and really some of the practices you engage in now? How did you learn so quickly?
Really, the short answer is I treated it like a job, right? And that's something that I think it's a mistake that a lot of people in crypto make, where they treat it like it's just a leisurely hobby, and they want to make more than they would make at their job, but they also don't want to work as hard as they work at their job. And so I treated it like a job. I spent, when I was doing drop shipping, it was running my own business, and I was doing 12 to 16 hours a day, every day, including weekends, while I was doing college, mind you, every single day grinding away at it. And that's how I was successful at it. And so I just applied the same process here, and I was in spaces listening. If there was a space open, I was in it, right? And so the people I followed were David Gokhshtein, AJ, who was doing a show with David Gokhshtein at the time on Twitter, like a live stream show. Then there was Plasma and Sikasa, Crash, and then a couple TA guys that I followed as well. And I just studied those guys. If I saw someone who was in a position where I wish that I was in, well, like, how did they get there? What's their thought process? What strategies do they have? And the thing is, most of these people, they want other people to learn, right? They're good people and they're trying to share what they know. And most people just kind of brush the information shared. They just brush it aside. It's like, okay, that's good for you that you do those things. But I applied everything that I could. I tried to sponge up as much knowledge as possible, and I would apply that to myself. And I didn't trade at all. I did not get into the Solana trenches. I bought something that I had conviction in with a good narrative, and I waited. And as I waited, I learned. And that's where I got ahead. And then every time that I made a trade, I bought something or I sold something, I took notes in my journal. And I had a trading journal specifically for it. It wasn't a trading journal at the time, but it became my trading journal. And then whenever I made a mistake or I didn't do something optimally, or even I just heard something that is like, that's a good way to trade, I would just write it down as like a rule in my journal. And so some of the rules that I have are never fully exit a position. I learned that one very early on. Another rule that I had was don't buy if the volume is higher than market cap. And there's just a long list of these things I wrote down for myself so that I wouldn't forget. And then I applied that to my future trading. And I just made sure that I didn't make the same mistake twice. And I feel as if that is probably the largest contributing factor to how quickly I grew.
What have been some of the biggest mistakes that you have made or that you've witnessed others make?
One of the mistakes that ate me up early on is that I did not have money set aside on other blockchains and on exchanges that I could quickly access. All my money was on Ethereum in one Uniswap wallet, and that was it. And I wasn't fully deployed, right? I had $1,000 and I put like 600 in Bobo and 200 in Dodo, and then the rest was in Ethereum. But I just didn't have anything spread out. So I couldn't jump on opportunities. Like I pointed out the Roost pre-sale to a couple of my buddies, and I had no free capital to get in. And I pointed out there was a handful of big political coins that ran very early on in Q1 and Q2 of 2024, stuff like Bowden, and there was a whole meta around those, and I caught all of those below 1 mil. I got my friends in, but I couldn't get in myself, and a lot of stuff like that. That was just a matter of I didn't make sure that I was able to take advantage of any opportunities that may arise, and so I was not ready, and I was not positioned in a way that I should be positioned so that I could catch any upside that may appear. So that was probably one of my biggest mistakes early on. More recently, however, when you are in several months of upside back to back to back to back, you get lazy. You start sleeping in. You stop trying to learn new skills. You stop watching Bitcoin every day. You stop studying the majors, what really drives the Memecoin ecosystem. And I stopped looking for other perspectives. And so that led me to round tripping more than I should have on this last leg. And now granted, I did exit well over half of my positions before the top was in with the Trump meme coin. However, I think there were many obvious top signals and there were many obvious macro data points that I would have noticed if I was just paying more attention. And so getting complacent, getting lazy when times are consistently really good, that's something that I would say, everyone needs to make sure that they're vigilant against that, vigilance against complacency.
Yeah, you're one of the best analysts that I have in my circle. Can you talk about top signals, bottom signals, what you look for in regards to the direction of the market? Maybe just a primer or an introduction or an overview on just how you look at the markets and what indicators you use to determine where you think things could go from here.
The way that I manage my portfolio is I don't try to maximize every dollar. I'm not like, okay, I need to fully exit my position at the exact top. And if I DCA out on the way up, then I'm not going to maximize my profits. I do my best not to get greedy and I try to stay fearful. And that doesn't mean being a bear. That doesn't mean being sidelined or anything like that, but always looking out for the worst case scenario. And I'm always watching out for that and planning what I would do in that scenario. And that way, the worst case, exactly what I planned for happens. and I end up buying some more stuff for cheap. Best case, I make more money than I thought I would. It's a win-win in my opinion. Now, I may not make as much money as people who only position for upside. However, I keep a whole heck of a lot more than those people do. And I think that's the key right there, keeping your wealth, because anyone can make a lot of money in crypto. The key is keeping it and making sure that you don't give it back to the casino. And one of the best ways that I do that is I try not to make plans for Bitcoin price action. There was one exception, and that was when we had this pullback to 74K a few weeks back. I was saying that was going to happen ever since January, and I was shorting all the way down, but that's very rare. It's very rare to have structure that is so blatantly obvious that a retest like that is going to happen. It's extremely rare. So I try not to do stuff like that where I'm like, oh, Bitcoin is going to break out here for sure, or Bitcoin is going to nuke here for sure. I'm more so concerned with things like Bitcoin dominance, right? Which is the total percentage of all money that's in crypto that's in Bitcoin, and things like ETH/BTC, which is a metric of how Ethereum is performing against Bitcoin. And then I've got a myriad of other charts along those lines, so that I know based off of the charts, are alts going to outperform Bitcoin? Which alts are going to outperform Bitcoin the most? Is Bitcoin going to drastically outperform everything else? Is Ethereum catching up to Bitcoin? Things like that, so that I can know and expect downside, like extra downside. And that really is what saved me from capitulating on that dip to 74K. And that's because, the dip to 74K Bitcoin, that's really not that bad. It's really not a big deal, right? 74K Bitcoin is not, it's not scary. But what was scary was $1,300 Ethereum. And I think that's what freaked out a lot of people. And that's what freaked me out. But I knew that was going to happen, or, not the dollar amount. I expected heavy underperformance by Ethereum until it returned home, which is a concept that Benjamin Cohen spoke a lot about. I recommend subscribing to him on YouTube and on Twitter. Very informal guy. And also until ETH/BTC had reached its range lows. And that's what it did on this drop to 74K Bitcoin. And because I was able to expect that, I did not know what the dollar amount was going to be for Ethereum when it bottoms. I didn't know what the top was going to be dollar amount wise. But what I did know is Ethereum's going to underperform, and I positioned accordingly. And so those are the kinds of indicators that I like to keep an eye out for.
It's late May 2025. What is your prediction, or how are you looking at where you think the markets could go from here on a wider time frame?
My base case for Bitcoin as the cycle high has been $170,000, and it's been that for nearly a year. That's been my goal, that's been my target, and I think that's extremely realistic. I think Bitcoin could hit far higher if the market allows for it, and I think it could also hit much lower as a cycle top. That's my mid-range target, and I would not be upset if we hit 150 to 170K Bitcoin. With that in mind, I think that we've got one leg left in the bull market, and I think this leg has the most upside out of any of the previous legs that we've had before so far. And I think it actually has more upside than everything altogether. So I'm very heavily net long, and that's the target. And until 130 to 150K Bitcoin, I won't be taking aggressive profits. I'm going to be waiting for that point, but I will be DCAing out a small amount on the way up. And that's my general expectation as far as Bitcoin price action goes.
Any thoughts on ETH, Altseason?
Here's the thing. Altseason doesn't need to happen. I don't think Altseason is a specific part in a cycle. I think rather it's a result of good monetary policy. In cycles past, every time that there was an altcoin season, and ETH/BTC skyrocketed. And when ETH/BTC skyrockets, for anyone who doesn't know, that's just when ETH drastically outperforms Bitcoin. And whenever that happens, it's when quantitative tightening ends. And so that's when the Fed basically stops selling. So when the Fed stops selling and they start buying and they pump up the markets, that's when altcoin season has historically happened. And so I think realistically, QT should end sometime late summer of this year, but it doesn't need to. We're currently in ETH season. ETH season just started, where ETH is drastically outperforming other altcoins. And so that's extremely bullish for altcoins, because you can't have an altcoin season before an ETH season. So the crypto market is positioning so that it would be possible for an altcoin season to happen, but it's not a must. And I think it's extremely important to keep in mind that altcoin season is not a must because, worst case scenario, what if it doesn't come and then everyone stays fully exposed to the markets because they think altcoin season is the top signal and then they round trip everything and you've got to do it all over again. So that'd be my advice as far as altcoin season goes. And, I'm going to hope for upside, but I'm going to prepare for the most underwhelming scenario.
What tools do you use whenever you're trading memes, like software, website, bots, whatever? Like, what are some of your settings? Like, what practically do you use when it comes to your trading?
On a lower time frame and on a higher time frame, I guess, I really like to use fibs. Fibonacci levels are a tool commonly used on charts. For anyone who doesn't know how to use them or how to pull them up on Deck Screener or TradingView, you can just ask ChatGPT. It's super simple. It'll explain it to you. I use fibs to watch key price levels and also price targets. And then I use RSI, MACD, like all the normie indicators, the quote unquote normie indicators, because, there's a reason that they're normie indicators. It's because they're easy to use, easy to understand, and widely applicable. So those are always good. I use so many other indicators, but I try not to post them on my charts because nobody understands them. And I don't want to be too confusing because I remember when I was new and all the charts that I post, they're with hopes that someone who was where I was a year ago sees them and they learn something. So it's just not beneficial for me to be posting other indicators than that. But I usually use a ton of charts for Confluence, like something that I use, and I use them, I believe, more than anybody else I see, is pair charts. And so I like to chart tokens against each other. So I talked about Bobo and Dodo earlier on. You could actually chart Bobo against Dodo instead of Bobo denominated by the US dollar or Bobo denominated by ETH. You could see Bobo denominated by Dodo. And you'll see, is it going up? That means Bobo's outperforming Dodo. Is it going down? That means Dodo is outperforming Bobo. And I really like to use pair charts. I use it on all of my holdings so that I know how well they're performing against each other. And it has helped me massively to make sure that I'm not holding dead weight tokens, because there are a lot of people out there who are bag holders of their meme coin and they believe in the narrative, and it may be a good narrative, but if it can't perform, then why hold it? Are we in this to make money, or are we in this to hold things that have good narratives?
Yeah, that's super helpful. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently this time?
If I could do it all over again, I would full port the BOEM pre-sale and then buy Trump at virtually nothing. But I get that may not be the question that you're asking. I would say I'd probably do exactly what I did. I don't really have any regrets other than not learning leverage trading and low time frame trading soon enough. Something that I've been focusing on a lot lately has been low time frame leverage trading, because I want to maximize my gains in the bear run. I believe the bear run is where generational wealth is created. Hanok knows, we've talked about this a lot. Generational wealth is created in the bear run. It's when everything nukes 90% with no bounces, and you can go in and you can load up a 10x short, a 20x short with size, and just print risk-free, insane gains on the downside. You want to be the reason in the bear market that exchanges default, because they're bankrupt because you took all their money from shorting. And that actually happens a lot in bear markets. All the exchanges go under. And so you want to be that guy. And that's my goal. I want to be that guy. I want to be able to stack 6 figures on 10 to 20x leverage on a short and ride it all the way down to zero. And so that's why I've been focusing on leverage trading a lot. And I myself, I've had multiple 6-figure P&Ls leverage trading so far. I feel like the more that I learn, the more I realize I know absolutely nothing about leverage trading. And so I've been focusing a lot on learning on a low time frame, learning different setups, high probability versus low probability models. And I shouted out a couple people the other day on good people to follow if you're trying to learn that stuff as well. And so I won't name drop them on the podcast though.
What are your thoughts about Donald Trump, right? The Trump administration, their effect on crypto in general. Just what are your thoughts about everything you've seen coming from the Trump administration?
Oh man, that's a fun one. So I have a lot of mixed feelings, right? I am a Trump supporter, big time. I think he's doing fantastic things for the economy. And I think it's about time that we stopped getting ripped off by China, as well as a vast number of other countries. The US has been getting taken advantage of, and it still is, but it's a little bit less now, and that makes me a little bit happy. But as far as crypto goes, overall, it's just good to have a pro-crypto president. He's going to bring more regulation, just like any president would, because crypto is a low regulation market, and he's going to bring more regulation, which is a downside. But at the same time, if he could make the space a little bit safer, that's a plus to me. And I'm mostly excited for any changes that he makes specifically for crypto capital gains, because I have a multi-cycle outlook on a lot of my holdings, and I hold a lot of Monero, Sui, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I'm starting to buy some hyperliquid things that I'm going to hold for years and years and years. And I want to be able to cash them out a decade or two from now without having to pay capital gains tax on them. And that's where my main interest is as a crypto investor and trader. That's what I want. I want the capital gains taxes to be gone.
I'm with you there. What meme coins, projects, you've listed off a couple already, but what are you excited about? Like, what coins are you looking at, studying, and just getting excited about this cycle?
The one that I'm most excited for, and I was actually put onto this by Crash on Twitter, Crashiest Clay, for anyone who doesn't know him. It's Monero. It's become my favorite holding. Before long, it will be my largest holding as well. I firmly believe that it is more Bitcoin than Bitcoin is. And so what Monero is, for anyone who does not know, and the ticker for Monero is XMR. If you want to look at the chart on TradingView, type in XMR, it'll pop up. What Monero is it's a Bitcoin clone. It's much better in areas relative to mining, transaction speed, and fees. It has minor improvements in those areas, which is nice. But the big key function to it is that it is a privacy coin. And so Bitcoin, the goal behind it was to have truly decentralized, privatized finances, because everything was controlled by the government and institutions. There was no real retail's money. Like we have what the government wants us to have. And the goal for Bitcoin was to go against that. But now Bitcoin has, like, the largest holders of Bitcoin are a couple US based institutions, the US government, and then a handful of other governments. And that's not what Bitcoin was meant to be. And everyone's talking about, yay, bullish on Trump building a Bitcoin reserve. But I mean, if this continues, world governments are going to control Bitcoin. It just goes against everything Bitcoin stands for. And Monero fixes this. Monero is private, so you cannot track transactions. So the government, more importantly, cannot track transactions. It's just not a public ledger. So it's real private money. It's like blockchain Swedish banking. And so that's what I'm super excited about. It has roughly the same supply as Bitcoin, which means that when Bitcoin was at, 5 billion market cap, it had the same price in USD that Monero had at 5 billion market cap. So right now, Monero is sitting at $370. And I firmly believe that buying Monero at $370 is like buying Bitcoin at $370. And I talk to a lot of people about crypto. They ask me what I do. And the one thing that I tell them is buy a Monero. And that's not financial advice, obviously. I'm not a financial advisor, but buy one. What's the downside? The downside is you lose $370. Big deal. You'll forget about it in a couple months if it goes to zero, which it won't. But if it goes to where it's valued, which is where Bitcoin is currently at, that's $100,000. People say, oh man, I wish that I just bought one Bitcoin when it was at $300. What is the downside and what's the reason not to? And that's what I always tell people. So that is by far what I'm most excited for in crypto. It's the long-term outlook on Monero.
Yeah, I love everything that I'm seeing when it comes to Monero. Just learning from guys like Crash, yourself, and others. Any other coins, maybe maybe memes, alts, anything else you're excited about this cycle?
Some memes that I'm excited for. Obviously, the project that I'm the lead of, which is Stonks on Ethereum. It is the original Stonks meme coin, even if it's been attacked by various very wealthy groups. And the reason behind myself being excited for it is simply put, there are some very wealthy people who want to take it to insane heights, and I'm helping them do it. I'm not allowed to say a lot of what is planned, but there are some pretty big things planned, and Stonks, despite being a meme coin, is one of my largest holdings still. I have not sold from my initial buy almost a year ago, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm very bullish on it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Stonks is going to do this cycle. Man, thank you so much for sharing. If someone is new, as we begin to wrap up our conversation here, if someone is new, more interested in crypto, trading, investing, even memes, where would you recommend that they get started on their journey?
I would recommend that you follow all the people that Henok interacts with daily. That's pretty much my list of people. People like David Gokhshtein, Crashius Clay, and the entire G Media network. So that's people like Landy, Jules, Soka. Then also a couple other people like Sikasa and Plasma on Twitter. And then Benjamin Cohen. I could talk on and on and on about all the people that I think you should follow and really study. And the best advice that I could give to someone who's new is don't worry about making money, because you're not going to make money when you know nothing. If you know nothing and you're buying large amounts of something, you are retail. You are the exit liquidity. You are the top signal, and you don't want to be that. Get in and learn and focus on learning and treat learning like a job, and do that for hours and hours and hours every single day. I was in spaces and in live streams watching YouTube videos, taking notes, and it wasn't just spaces from the people that I listed earlier. I would just search up crypto spaces and just join them on Twitter all day, over 12 hours a day. And that's how I learned so quickly. And that's what I would recommend you do. And just remember that success is not a result of luck. You know, some people do get lucky, but those people, they lose everything on the very next trade because of that luck. You don't want to get lucky. You want success because you are actually skillful and you actually know your stuff. That's how you get consistent gains and you keep your money. So success is not a byproduct of luck. It's a result of knowledge. You'll succeed when you actually know your stuff. And so focusing on learning, focusing on improving, tracking your progress, and not giving up, because it's difficult, but it's doable. So that'd be my advice.
Thank you for that. Man, what an incredible interview. Where can people follow you on Twitter, on social media? Let's get your handle out there. Make sure everyone's following you and turning on notifications.
My Twitter handle is @Guardian1771. Then it has an underscore at the end. And that's where you can find me on Twitter. I don't really have many other socials that I'm able to give out or that I consistently put content out on anyways. But Twitter's really all you need if you're getting into crypto. YouTube is helpful as well. But Twitter's the main thing because that's where all the action happens. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, and I can't commend him highly enough. I retweet Guardian pretty regularly. I'm in spaces with him on Twitter as well, so it won't be hard to find him if you find me, but it's @Guardian1771 _. You want to make sure you follow that account and turn on notifications. We are going to go in for an incredible ride. And he also has a partnership with Blowfin, the only centralized exchange that he's ever consistently leverage traded on. It's an incredible platform that I'm going to be participating in as well. He's a partner. He has an affiliate link. So go to his profile on Twitter. Check out the pinned tweet there, the links and in regards to that specific partnership and being able to set up your own account through his affiliate will be right there. And if you enjoy what Guardian is putting out, if you are finding value in it like I have, it has been a life-changing event for me monetarily and in so many other ways. Support Guardian. You know, support people that are supporting you in your journey of making money. Use that link. I can't thank you enough. Guardian, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for contributing to the space. Thank you for being a personal just gift in my own life, helping me see the markets better and get better. You know, you've helped me and given me such life-changing gains in regards to just information, alpha, and just principles that I could turn into profit. And I hope that everyone else has as well. So thank you for being here. And also, audience, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please get this podcast in the hands of as many people as possible. DM people, copy the link, retweet, get it out there. If you are finding value and this is helping somebody, then sure enough, it's going to help somebody else as well. And I really appreciate you supporting the Memecoin podcast. Until next time, I will see you on social media.